Welcome to the Home Builder Digital Marketing Podcast. Over 90% of today's home buyers start their buyer journey online. Here we talk with not only industry experts, but also your fellow home builder marketers to learn how you can succeed in our incredibly competitive digital world. And now, here are your hosts, Greg Bray and Kevin Weitzel.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Home Builder Digital Marketing Podcast. I'm Greg Bray with Blue Tangerine.
And I'm Kevin Weitzel with Outhouse.
And we are pleased today to have joining us Kyle Lintala. Kyle is the head of product at BILT Solutions. Welcome, Kyle. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Well, let's start off and just help people get to know a little bit about you and give us that quick background overview about yourself.
Yeah, so I am with BILT Solutions, been with BILT since the inception, went live with the platform about 2 years ago. I worked for a home builder for around 7 years in Michigan. I currently live in Michigan, originally from Ohio. A little bit about my background. I grew up in construction and then right out of school, went out into the field, building houses, framing houses. We were kind of like a one-stop shop for most things, mostly everything. Then eventually transitioned to a home builder, and then with that home builder went into the estimating and purchasing department. And at that same time I was going back to school to get an MBA in quantitative analysis, which then kind of led to my path of being all things, not all things, but a lot of things, data and technology for home builders specifically.
All right, so before I get into my next question, I have to know, because I'm originally from Michigan too. So are you a Wolverine, a Spartan, a Bronco, which is Western Michigan, so just for the listeners that don't know, WMU Bronco, or a pot leaf, because you did say you're originally from Ohio. I don't remember what they call them there. They look like pot leaf. They're Buckeye, or are you a Buckeye?
Right.
What is your alma mater?
Yeah, so I actually went to school in Minneapolis, a small private school in Minneapolis. I don't even know what our mascot was. It was North Central University.
That's a good thing to not know, because that means that you were academia, not sports. That was more just me being silly. I like the chance I get to pick on the pot leaves. But anyway, so we're at the point of our show where before we get into what you do at BILT and what you are bringing to the table for our listeners, we need to know something about you personally that has nothing to do with the home building industry, work, family, just something about you that is interesting. What do we got?
Oh, I don't know about interesting. I know one thing that I didn't stumble upon until I got into adult life was classic literature and reading classic literature. And I think part of that is because I'm analytical. So all of that is overanalyzed, and you get like a blend of new experiences through reading and then being able to overanalyze things and look at things. So not really an interesting tidbit, but it is something that I don't think really anyone knows about me.
Now, are we talking about oddball stuff like De Quincey's essays, or are we talking about more universally classic like Iliad and the Odyssey?
Yeah, more of like the typical stuff like Tennyson, Jane Austen. I guess a lot of early 1800s would probably be my favorite era of stuff. No reason why. I couldn't explain to you why I gravitated there, but that's kind of where I'm at.
I dig it.
Kevin, you continue to surprise me with the little nuggets you pull out.
Well, this is something Greg does not know about me that our listeners are going to learn another little tidbit about Kevin. I have an antique book collection that is roughly about 600 books that date anywhere from about 1740, I think is the oldest copyright date that I have, all the way up to about the early teens of the 1900s. I actually donated all of the medical books that my mother's adopted father had. He was, I guess, my adopted grandfather. I donated all the medical books to the Rawson House here in Arizona so they could have a display of medical books in their museum.
I did not know that, Kevin.
I'm practically illiterate. I'm a skim reader, Kyle. Cliff notes are too involved for me. I just need the highlights. Give them to me. Bust them out. I'm done,
Right. Yeah, well, I'm similar in that I'll read, I'll analyze, I'll dissect, and then I'll forget. So, come back to something 2 years later.
It's practically the same thing, right?
Yeah. Start over.
All right, so home building.
Kyle, help us understand when that moment was that you said, I don't want to swing a hammer anymore, but I still want to be in this industry.
Oh, yeah, that is a good question. So I like being hands-on. I just saw an opportunity for inefficiencies to be addressed at a level that they weren't being addressed. So it happened to work out that my gut instinct was correct. And like, okay, let's see if I can pivot go this direction and help out and bring in this area that I'm interested into home building. So yeah, I got lucky in that I was able to spot that and my intuition was there. So not a direct path, but yeah, that's how I stumbled into that.
Tell us a little bit more about BILT Solutions. What is it that you guys are offering and what's the service that's available?
Yeah, so we do many things, data reporting and analytics for home builders, specifically right now, just Mark Systems, ERP system home builders on that platform, although we have had requests to integrate with other ERPs, but for now, just focusing on Mark Systems and those builders there. But what we do is we take, their ERP operations data, give them good insights, eliminate redundancy. So people are going to Excel, copying things, looking things up from the system, pulling them out, dumping them into miscellaneous spreadsheets all around. So our main offering is just automating all of that. The data's there, it's in one spot. Let's make sure we get it right in that one spot, and then we can automate the consumption of that data. That's one of the big things that we do. And then we end up being like a one-stop shop for reporting. So then we're pulling in Google Analytics, we're pulling in your CRM data, we're pulling in economic data, we're pulling in data from other sources as well. So then no matter what your business function is, you can have all of the data you need in one spot. So you don't have to, if you're on the executive team, you don't necessarily have to log into something like Lasso to see your Lasso data. You don't have to wait for that Lasso to report to come to you monthly. If you're interested, if it comes up in a meeting, you can go right on your computer, go to our platform, see your Lasso data, see how that interacts with data from your other platforms.
So, question for you. There's no secret that one of the largest ERP operators out there, I'm not going to mention their name, but one of the largest ones out there, adopted by many, many, many home builders across the country, does not allow any API integration, does not allow that data to live outside of their little chasm of information. How do you handle clients that have chosen to put their eggs in that basket and still be able to get around that to be able to utilize that data for multiple uses?
Yeah, I think that would be extremely difficult to do. But I think if there's a way to export critical data, then you could like kind of automate it as long as you're getting those exports in. People still need their ad hoc analysis. So by all means, use Excel. Excel's great. I'm definitely not going to ding on Excel, even though a lot of people have things siloed in Excel. But when it's used correctly, Excel is phenomenal. What you could do to try to centralize some of that is take critical data, export it, and just have someone own it and keep it in one spot, and then use that exported data as your like central hub to pull that data from. Because once it's in CSV or a file anywhere outside of the system, we could read it. Some manual step has to happen to extract it out. Then once we get it, we're good.
So Kyle, before we dive in a little deeper into what some of this data is useful for, take us back a step into when you guys were starting to put the solution together. What was it that you were hitting your head on the wall going, there's got to be a better way, there's got to be a better way, we should build a better way? What was that challenge that you were facing and trying to solve?
Yeah, I think it came from the time it took to get answers to basic questions. It was a lot of hunting and repetitive searching for things. And then it was like, okay, we're going to this spreadsheet and the numbers like kind of off from this other spreadsheet, like two different people are managing those. These should tie out and be the same thing. So yeah, it was a blend of one, accuracy, and two, just efficiency of getting data and then getting it deployed and distributed. If you are siloed in Excel, that's one thing that can be tricky is deploying what analytics people should look at. You're going to wait for that email to come in to be able to see the updated analytics sheet. Most of the time, people are probably keeping their own analytics sheet of sort in that realm. So like, does that tie out to everyone else's? Are we talking the same thing come meeting time? Or do we have to wait for that report to come to us? So yeah, I think it was a blend of efficiencies and accuracy.
So then, as you now are trying to create this central hub for all this various data, what are some of those questions that people are trying to answer or should be considering? And I guess another way to look at that is, what is the data they should be watching and paying attention to help their business?
Yeah, I think biggest ROI right off the bat for our platform is construction cost variance in that realm. And I guess it could be applied to just variance in general, even variance from budget. If you're talking sales and marketing, your sales marketing budget and the allocations there, like what your variants are, how you're tracking there. Again, it's that not waiting for like the monthly report to see where you're at. It's like you can go in real time, see how you're tracking. Yeah, and then in the construction realm, you can dive into like the reasons why things are happening, like the cost categories, the cost codes, descriptions of things, and see if you can make sense of areas where you're losing dollars.
Some of the systems that you mentioned, you mentioned Mark Systems as the ERP, you mentioned the CRM, you mentioned the website data. What are some of the things that can happen when you actually begin to connect these things together? Are there things you can learn that you cannot learn when they're all individually siloed or managed?
Yeah, I certainly think so. What we did a few months back was we started tapping into economic data. There you can start to see your trends in your organization against economics. You can be broad, national economics, you can get local, start pulling some things there. And then you can see how you are performing to that. And then, yeah, you can use that to your, advantage for strategy, or at least to gauge your performance in the market, in your local market. Benchmarking without benchmarking.
So you're talking like Doug Henning, David Copperfield magic here, where it's not about how you sell, it's about how you buy. It's about how you put the interconnected systems to create that profitability versus just hoping for profitability.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it.
You mean hope's not a strategy, Kevin?
I'm surprised how often hope is a strategy, which is crazy. But yes.
Well, I think it's interesting, Kyle. You talk about layering in some of that more general analytic data, because there is that question. It's like, gosh, traffic's down, something's down. Why is it down? Is it just because we changed something? Is it because we're doing something different? Or is it because the Fed did something, or this other global event just happened and everybody quit going to shop for homes for 3 weeks because they were all stuck to the news because of this other thing, or whatever? How do we connect that in a way where we can be comfortable that we didn't just change or break something because of that new campaign we launched, but rather it's because of this other external factor?
I think that's where being able to start making sense of those things is where like our platform comes in handy. If you go to like your Google Analytics studio and you're just focusing on your Google Analytics report, you're not necessarily at that moment in time, like seeing what your other systems are doing, seeing like what the broad, economic indicators, what they're saying as well. So being able to see like all that on a single screen or on, an intuitive like interface, we can like click through and like drill down into things and see things. You can then answer those questions. Okay, traffic is down. Here are some of the things that could have caused that. Traffic is down and leads are up because XYZ, as you can see in this visual. Start to piecemeal those things together.
As you look at pulling in website data, because most of our audience listening today is more on the sales and marketing team and may not be involved in some of the other parts of the business as much. Are there some things that can get set up front, like in a Google Analytics scenario, that would make this data even more helpful? Some things that could be tracked on the website that then as they pull through would help make some of these connections even more useful and easier to do?
I think anything that would help you indicate a buyer's interest would be good to have. So if you don't have like pages for your different products or different product types, I guess home builders, if you're talking like floor plans, if you don't have a page for your floor plans or anything indicating any details about a floor plan, get those on your site so then we can see, the traffic to those, like where are people clicking on the most. And same for like location. When people are on your website, if you can't extract what location they're interested or what floor plan they're interested in, then there's definitely improvements to be made there as home builders. There's things like that. And then anything that would indicate how you as the builder could help a buyer in their journey. If you need help with anything, what would that be? Whether it's like navigating mortgages or whether it's like the logistics of moving, beyond the actual like sale of it, how could a builder help? And then you could start to see like who your buyers are and learn more about your buyers without needing to actually get that lead in the system and then start dumping data on the lead. You can kind of get the step before start, extracting some of those pieces out of there.
Are you guys able to create some benchmarks at a larger client beyond just an individual, but to be able to say, hey, across all of our traffic and things that we're seeing across all of our clients, there's this type of thing happening, or this type of conversion rate level, or this type of traffic increase, decrease that people can kind of compare themselves to?
We're probably too small for that right now, but what we do, probably one of the advantages of being small, is that we'll get, someone make a request saying, hey, we're seeing this interaction or this going on with our data, we want to report to see it in like XYZ manner. So then we can go to our other clients and say, okay, they're experiencing that same thing. Maybe this solution will help them as well. We're kind of like a brain trust. I don't know if that's the right word, but everyone's kind of like pitching into how we can make this platform better.
As you kind of consider the CRM side versus the website side versus some of the production side, are there things that you're able to pull out and show, even if it's just still in that self-contained, like this is all data that's from Google Analytics. We're not mirroring it up to anything else, but we can still display it better. We can still help you mine it a little easier than you might just on your own?
Yeah. Google Analytics, you can replicate on our platform anything you see on, the Google Analytics platform or their application. You can toggle between the two or set it up however you would want to see. But then you're not limited to your users that can go on Google Analytics. Because you don't necessarily want your executive team to have to go on to Google Analytics whenever they want to see like an update on website data. But yeah, we can mimic the reporting that you see in those. Most of the time, we can be more flexible in how it is displayed, so you can click and drill through. So if you're talking CRM data, you can click through and you click on a community. Like let's say you're looking at a community. Then from there, you can drill down into your web traffic on that community. You can drill down into like your sales or operations in that community. Like what has your cycle time been in that community? Stuff like that.
Now, I'm guessing, Kyle, that the people that you work with are folks that actually value their data, because that's why they're coming to you. But I bet that you also have conversations with those that you're trying to invite to work with you who maybe don't value their data quite as much or haven't quite figured out that this is even a thing they should be worried about. What are some of the things you hear out there as you are talking to builders that just kind of make you go, wow, you're really missing it? You don't even know the opportunities that are out there to benefit from some of this information.
Yeah, that's actually very hard, at least for me, to articulate. Like if we're on a sale call of sorts, if you don't value your data, how do you get them to see that there is value in their data?
Kyle, do you think it's more that it's not that they do or don't necessarily value the data, because most people will value data when it's presented to them. However, do you think that it's that a lot of builders in our industry lack putting the items in place that can provide said data?
Yeah, I think that that's very true. And I think oftentimes it's more of like hindsight, like, okay, we're starting to see the value in analytics. So now we want to see what trends we can get out of, the last 5 years of X data. It's like, well, you weren't capturing it for the last 5 years. You weren't capturing it cleanly for the last 5 years. So yeah, we do run into that quite a bit.
How do you have conversations about keeping data clean? You mentioned they're not capturing it cleanly. What does that mean to you? And how do people need to consider that process so that their data is quote unquote clean?
The best way to, articulate that is just to show it. So like we can run free reports so people can see, but it's like you pull their data as they're getting it into a system and it's display it back to them. They're like, oh, I know I had more than 5 sales in this community. It's like, well, technically, according to your ERP system, you did not. Sure, your spreadsheet says 8, theirs says 6. So both are more than 5, but in the system, you actually have 5.
That seems like a pretty big one to be out of sync on. How many of these homes did we actually sell? That's a pretty big miss in my mind.
I think like construction schedule is a big one. So especially if you're doing like CRM stuff where you want to kick out, notification saying, oh, hey, this house is framed. You can expect to see this next. Well, if you don't get that framing activity logged, that email is not going to go out. Do you have anyone actually auditing to see if that framing activity is logged? If you have like reports on it or even like alerts or indicators on it. I'm saying like, oh, hey, this job has gone 12 days past when it should have been framed. Like someone look into it. You're going to miss out on those if you don't have some kind of controls in place to capture those things.
I think that's a great example of using data to improve the customer experience. It's not just about scheduling, who's supposed to show up next to do their job, but it's about keeping the customer informed. It's about making them excited about the progress that's happening and keeping them engaged in all of that and being able to do it in a relatively automated fashion without a lot of work if you can trust that the data is getting logged properly. I mean, Kevin, what are some things you think would benefit, from that type of data management?
With data at any time, you can always utilize it to reverse engineer processes. You can use it to improve delivery times. You can use it to improve communication between one department to another. Because sales can say, yeah, we need more houses to sell, in XYZ community. But if they don't realize that the ERP is telling them that they're 3 weeks backlogged on just getting lumber deliveries, sure, they can find that out through the smoke signals within the company. However, if they look right at the data charts that show them that on the delivery schedule, here's what this is, and it's going to affect the lead time of home build series, 1, 2, and 3, they know that those homes aren't available. They don't have to worry about whether they can sell those homes or not. I think communication and processes, you can improve all of it. Anytime you can improve that communication and process, you improve one major component in life, and that component is called profitability. So anytime you can improve profitability, that allows the company to have more money to utilize for better land acquisition, for researching and finding better talent, and for properly compensating that better talent. So there we go. Boom. That's what that data gives me.
Yep, spot on. The speed of data retrieval is huge. People shouldn't be going around having to hunt down information. We can be proactive with our buyers and communicating with our buyers. The data is there. And especially if you have like alert systems in place, and then you can really be proactive in what you're communicating to your buyers and when.
Well, Kyle, this has been a great conversation to learn a little more about what's possible with some of this data. What's the biggest roadblocks that you see builders run into who want to see some of this data and connect it, but just keep getting stuck for some reason? What is it that gets in the way?
I would think it is adoption, and I don't want to say fear of adoption, but there are a lot of tech solutions out there, and a lot of builders adopting different tech solutions. There are tech solutions that might not have the best buy-in. So I think there's that. And will our employees actually use this thing type of deal? So I think that's probably the biggest hurdle that we've seen in order to get value out of our platform. Most builders would need some form of like data transformation across their company or like data literacy. We help with that. Like we'll coach up teams like on their data literacy. You don't need it to get value out of our platform because we try to make it, as intuitive as possible. That is a hurdle that I think the builders see.
Definitely, we all expect the technology to just solve the problems, and there's a lot of work that goes into implementing various technologies, especially when you're connecting more than one together. So people expect Kyle shows up, he's like, oh, it's done, right? Within a day, and it's all ready to go, right? Is that a reasonable expectation, Kyle?
Easy peasy. It is not. I will say we do have a lot of like really good cookie cutter reports. So if you're on like other solutions that we're currently integrated with, you sign up day one. As soon as you go live, you have access to analytics that you haven't seen before. But yeah, we'd like the nuanced approach of making sure all of these systems talk together efficiently.
Well, Kyle, we appreciate your time today. Do you have any last words of advice that you'd like to leave with our listeners before we wrap up?
Just be curious about what your data can do and how you can leverage the data that you use on the day-to-day or the data that is around you, especially on the sales and marketing side. There's a lot of data there. So get curious, ask questions. Even if you don't know exactly who can solve it for you, there's Google, there's ChatGPT. Yeah, get creative.
Thank you, Kyle. If somebody wants to connect with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah, so our domain, our website is BILT.Solutions, and BILT is BILT. Hop on our website and there's a contact form there, or you can email me. It's KLINTALA@BILT.Solutions.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening today to the Home Builder Digital Marketing Podcast. I'm Greg Bray with Blue Tangerine.
And I'm Kevin Weitz with Outhouse. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about how Blue Tangerine and Outhouse can help you generate more qualified home buyer leads, visit bluetangerine.com and outhouse.net. If you've enjoyed our show today, please tell a friend, leave us a review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Be sure to join us again on the Home Builder Digital Marketing Podcast.